Hey there and welcome! So you just got the Mind Games assignment. And if you're feeling a little bit like, whoa, where do I even start? Don't worry, you are in exactly the right place. We're gonna crack this thing wide open together. Let's be real, seeing that P06-T03 brief for the first time, it can be pretty intimidating. It's this big checklist, a lot of different parts, and it is so easy to feel lost before you even begin. But trust me, that's a completely normal reaction. So I want you to think of this little explainer as your coach's game plan. We're going to take every single requirement, break it down step by step, and turn that scary checklist into a super clear, manageable path to victory. And here is our game plan for today. We've got 5 levels to beat. We'll start with level 1, profiling your player. Then we'll move on to designing their program. After that, we'll talk about justifying your strategy, what you actually need to submit, and wrap up with a timeline to get it all done. All right, let's dive right into level 1, profiling your player. Look, every single great strategy, whether it's in an actual game or for this assignment, starts with one thing: really understanding the person you're working with. The whole process here is actually pretty straightforward, and it breaks down into 3 simple steps. First up, you've got to pick your player. This can totally be you, or it can be a teammate. Next, you gather your intel using things like questionnaires or interviews. And finally, you pull all that information together into a profile that clearly lays out their psychological strengths and weaknesses. And this whole process has a name. It's called a needs analysis. You're basically putting on your detective hat here, and your job is to find the gap between where your player is right now and where they could be when they're playing at their absolute peak. This analysis, it is the foundation for everything else you're going to do. So, as a detective, your investigation needs to zero in on 5 key areas. You're going to be looking at their motivation, how they deal with stress and anxiety, what their arousal levels are like during a match, their overall confidence, and, of course, if they're part of a team, their team dynamics. Okay, level 1 complete. Now we're on to level 2, designing the program. This is the really cool part where you take all that intel you gathered and you build the ultimate training plan to basically boost your player's mental stats. Now, your program has to be structured across these 4 different phases of competition. So you've got the training phase where you're building those foundational skills. Then there's pre-competition, which is all about getting mentally prepared. During competition is where you manage the pressure in the heat of the moment. And finally, post-competition focuses on reflection and recovery. And the assignment gets really specific about what needs to go in these phases. For the training phase, you have to include smart goal setting. For the pre-competition phase, you've got to bring in techniques like mental rehearsal or something like progressive muscle relaxation, which is just a fancy way of saying you tense and then relax different muscles to calm yourself down. And it doesn't stop there. During the match itself, your plan has got to cover things like arousal control and using positive self-talk. And after the game, win or lose, the focus needs to shift to structured reflection and having strategies to cope with that outcome. Your program needs to touch on all of these things. All right, let's move on to level 3, justifying your strategy. This is your written report. Now, please, don't think of this as some boring, long essay. I want you to see it as your chance to explain the genius behind your game plan. So the assignment is asking for somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 words. And I know, when you see that number, it can cause a mini panic attack. But before you get stressed out, I promise you, this is way more manageable than it sounds. Why? Because that entire word count, the whole thing, really just boils down to answering 2 fundamental questions about the program you've created. That's it, just 2 questions. Question number 1 is the how. How does your program actually work? Here, you explain your plan and show how it helps your player at every single stage. Question number 2 is the why. Why this player? This is where you connect everything back to that initial needs analysis, proving that you didn't just pick random techniques out of a hat, but that you chose them specifically for your player's unique profile. And listen, here's a crucial tip to keep in mind. For a pass grade, you do not need to overcomplicate things. Your main job is to simply explain your plan and show that you've planned it out clearly. Focus on being clear, not on being overly complex. All right, team, it's time for level 4. Let's call it the final boss, the submission bundle. Let's look at the exact loot you need to turn in to complete this quest and get that pass. To get a pass, you absolutely must submit all 4 of these items. This is non-negotiable. You need your player assessment folder, the skills program you designed, that justification report, and finally, your presentation file. If even one of these is missing, a pass just isn't possible. And that brings us to our final level, level 5, the timeline to victory. Because a great game plan is useless if you don't manage your time, right? So let's walk through a simple 5-week schedule to get you across the finish line without any of that last-minute panic. So here's how you break it down. In the first 2 weeks, your whole focus should be on getting that needs analysis done and starting to design your program. Then you can use the holiday break to just draft the core parts. After that, in January, you'll finish the entire program, what's known as a periodized plan, because it's structured over time. Write your report and create that presentation. And honestly, this is the real key to success. This structure isn't just a suggestion, it is your best weapon against stress. If you can stick to this weekly plan, this massive assignment just turns into a series of small, easy wins. And you'll totally avoid that dreaded January panic and submit something you can be really proud of. You've got the strategy guide, you've got the timeline. Level 1 is just sitting there waiting for you. Ready to start the game?